People may still be filtering in a little bit, but good afternoon to everyone who is here with us. A few housekeeping things before we get started. My name is Sophia Leon. I am the Nutrition Education Coordinator here at Grow NYC. So I work with a few different nutrition education programs and different curriculum that we have. Throughout this presentation, if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat. We will have a lot of time for Q&A at the end. I won't be checking the chat throughout because I'm controlling the presentation. So if your question doesn't get answered until the end, that's why. Again, the presentation is being recorded and it will be sent afterwards in a follow-up email. So if you have to dart off, if you can't stay for the whole thing, you will be receiving a recording of the presentation and it will be posted on our website as well. So I work for Grow NYC. We protect the environment, we create green spaces, help people stay healthy, and give them opportunity to make a positive impact. And our work is broken down into 4 main sections. We have our conservation, green spaces, education, and food access and agriculture. So if you're based in New York City, you may know us mainly from our green markets across the city, Union Square, Grand Army Plaza, our biggest ones, and we have ones in all 5 boroughs. But we also do a lot of composting work, education, like this program here that we're all here for, and green spaces. So briefly, I will go over what we'll be talking about in this presentation. We'll be learning what is Root Camp, the curriculum, how do you teach it, what you need to get started, and we'll leave time for Q&A at the end. And just to reiterate, if you have questions throughout the presentation, please just drop them in the chat and we will get to them at the end. So we'll get started with an overview of the Root Camp curriculum. Root Camp generally is a curriculum with 10 45-minute lessons that are centered around the connection between food and well-being, food justice, criteria for making decisions, and rationale for shopping locally and in season. There are 10 lessons, and each lesson has discussion questions, relevant vocabulary. It includes a written brainstorming activity. And then the real heart of Root Camp is that in each lesson, there is a cooking activity for cooking in the classroom. So the cooking activity is for students to be focused on the senses, utilizing their hands as their first and most versatile tool, and it introduces students to basic kitchen utensils and appliances. So there's 10 lessons, and each one has a cooking activity in the lesson. As well, there is a take-home lesson or a take-home cooking activity in each lesson. So each lesson has 2 recipes, but we'll get into that a little bit later. The goals of Root Camp are that it's really a food awareness curriculum. So it's more than just nutrition or food systems. It's about all of the above. It's about nutrition. You're learning about specific vitamins and nutrients, but you're also being introduced to food systems and local food systems and how your food choices affect both your health and the environment. It's designed to foster healthy eating habits and culinary skills. And since the age range that it's targeting is upper elementary and middle school, it really provides a roadmap for making strong, informed, and healthy choices in this new phase of independence and self-awareness that is the middle school age. But as we'll talk about, it's also very flexible and has very successfully been taught in younger students with elementary school and in middle schools. The curriculum itself was developed by an organization called Ample Table for Everybody. And Ample Table for Everyone, also known as AIT, is another nonprofit working to fund solutions that feed a growing population of food insecure families in New York City specifically. An Ample Table for Everyone partners with us here at Grow NYC to help promote their curriculum and use our large network to kind of push it out to all of you. It is, like I said, a 10-lesson curriculum. We recommend a once-a-week pacing so that students will really be able to remember all of the materials that they've learned the weeks before and become fully involved. However, that's recommended. It is not necessitated that you do once a week. If it works better for you in your class to do once every 2 weeks or something like that, we're really flexible. And in the same regard, it's geared towards middle schoolers, but it's easily adaptable for both older or younger students. And we were able to offer this curriculum last year, and we had many more elementary school, I would say. It went more younger than older for the most part, but that doesn't mean that it can't be taught for older students. That's just, I think, honestly, more of our demographic. We work with more elementary schools. An example lesson that I'll talk a bit about is the role of sweet and salty. So I think this is lesson 4 of the curriculum. And some of the questions that you go over in this lesson are, what are other names used on labels for sugars and salts? So you're talking about food labeling. You're asking your students if they're surprised by food labels. Why do food makers and people add salts and sugars to food? Why do humans crave sugary or sweet food? And are sugar and salt a healthy part of the human diet? So even in these questions, you can kind of see how we are talking about nutrition and nutrition facts, but it's more than that. It's talking about systems and how especially people and communities are involved. One of the reasons that we add sugar to food or why we crave it is it's part of social experiences. And for that reason, everything can be healthy in moderation. It's not so cut and dry, like sugar is, unhealthy or something like that. The overriding principles of the root camp curriculum start with all living creatures eat and drink daily. There's a direct relationship between food, health, and mood. Feeding oneself, one's family, and one's community are essential life skills. Making healthy and informed choices are part of growing up. And there are techniques for eating healthy and affordably. And I think that this last bullet point, especially always, but especially right now, is very important to reiterate in a time of so much food insecurity or lack of food justice, that there are techniques for eating healthy and affordably. And I think that that is one of the most important points that the curriculum touches on. And the principles kind of coincide with the goals of the root camp curriculum, which are for students to begin or to increase helping at home with food prep, to actively participate in making decisions about their food intake, to seek out their elders who can share traditions and pass on family recipes, to understand and look forward to preparing and sharing food, to model their practical skills for siblings and peers, and to discuss how different cultures are expressed through food. And just to remind everyone that each of these lessons, each of the 10 lessons have a cooking activity in class. So for example, with modeling their practical skills for siblings and peers, if you're teaching students, chopping and different cooking skills in the classroom, it's a lot easier to bring home and say, hey, look what we did today in class, along with the fact that the curriculum comes with multiple recipes per lesson. There are these extra resources in the curriculum as well. So if you feel as if maybe you as the teacher or educator aren't as up to speed as you would like to be, we also include nutrition science guidelines, food tips and specific food guidelines, as well as other organizations and specific YouTube videos that you can watch if you yourself want some extra resources, or if any of your students want extra resources as well. I just saw a question from Rita. Will the recordings be available later? Yes. If you're talking about the recording of this presentation, it will be online tomorrow. It will be on our website and it will be emailed to you. And we also have Sasha from Paradise Community Garden. Excited to get to the roots. Well, hi, welcome. Just letting someone in. We'll continue. So now we've talked about, what the root camp curriculum is and kind of the goals behind it and why you might want to teach it. And next we're going to get into teaching root camp and what that really looks like. So the class format is the same for all of the lessons. It includes a do now, an inquiry, a hands-on activity, and a review, handout, or homework assignment. And I'll walk you through lesson 1, which is Introduction to Root Camp. And you can see all of these different parts in action. So the example lesson of Orientation to Root Camp, this would be the do now. So it has a worksheet for students. Where am I and where am I going? So it has some yes or no questions such as, I know how to read a food label. I know how to and often set the table. I understand how food affects my health, as well as some short answers such as name 5 fruits, 5 vegetables. Also, I have the following food allergies because we need to know this before we get cooking as a class. And we provide the same feedback form in the last lesson. So you as the educator can compare with your students how much they learned throughout the root camp curriculum for things like knowing how to read a food label or knowing what and where a farmer's market is. Some of the vocabulary that is included in lesson 1 includes words like root, systemic, biology, recipe, and some of the inquiry questions to promote discussion in your class are, what does every living thing need to survive? Besides survival, what else do we use food for? So again, this is like how I mentioned that root camp really tries to go past just the nutritional elements of food and really more into the social and cultural elements and why those are so important to us. So I think that from having that at the very beginning of the curriculum, you can tell that that's a really important part of this curriculum. The hands-on activity, which is another way of saying the cooking lesson part of each lesson. For the first lesson, the in-class recipe is apple wraps. And we have 1 large apple, 1 banana. It includes nut butters, but of course, if you don't want to use nut butters in your classroom, it gives some alternatives. And it has the tools that we need and directions. And this is an example of the recipe handout. We have the in-class recipe on the left, which is apple wraps, and then the take-home recipe on the right. The take-home recipe usually always has more ingredients. It might take more time and have more steps. So for this one, it's orange oatmeal pancakes. And it includes the source of where they got the recipe if people need more details. The handout for lesson 1 gets students ready for the next lesson. So the next lesson would be nourishment. What is it? So they define nutrition and nourishment. They ask the questions of why do we eat? And then it also reminds students of some of the facts that they learned during this lesson over on the right side. And we have a teacher evaluation form. Ample Table would really love your feedback for improving the curriculum every year. So within one week of completing each session, we have a form If for the teachers who might have taught this last year, we have revamped the form, so now it's just an online form, pretty easy to fill out. I will also have this in the follow-up email to this presentation. So if you do go ahead and teach this curriculum, we would really love your feedback. Mostly also if something particularly goes really well, or if something is not working as well, that's when it's really important to get that feedback. So if you feel like it might be too much to do this every single week, I would really recommend if you had an amazing lesson or maybe a lesson that wasn't as fantastic, to fill out our feedback form. So here is the lesson overview. So we have 10 lessons in total, and I won't read everything because I will be sending the curriculum out after this presentation. However, I will briefly go over the 10 lessons. We talked about lesson 1, which is orientation. Where am I and where am I going? Lesson 2 is nourishment. What is it? Lesson 3 is balancing meals, timing, portion size, and food groups. Lesson number 4 is the role of sweet and salty. Lesson 5 is why am I thirsty? The role of water in the diet. Lesson 6 is there a diet for humans? And so this one really talks about, more biologically speaking, what a correct or what a unique diet for humans might look like. Lesson number 7 is eat a rainbow. Lesson 8 is how does our environment affect our diet? Lesson number 9 is meals for all seasons, so eating seasonally. And lesson 10 is express yourself through your food. And this talks about how each and every one of us, connects differently with food and through our family and our history and culture, and how enjoying the diversity of foods around you is a great way to express yourself through food. So before we move on to specifics of how you can get started with root camp, I want to touch on some feedback from teachers that we got in the past year. Like I said, we were lucky enough to be able to offer this last year as well, and we had a lot of success stories from teachers in the New York City area who taught root camp. For example, a special education teacher from Brooklyn told us that root camp is going well with my students. They actively participate in the cooking activities. Our participation in root camp has been a great way to keep students engaged and encourage peer-to-peer interaction while practicing daily living and cooking skills. And we did have multiple special education classrooms do root camp last year. So if that is something you're interested in, I have many teachers that I can connect you with for specific things that might be relevant to your students. A 6th grade teacher from the Bronx said, my students had a great time, the vocabulary was helpful, and the students were excited to work in groups to put together the recipe. And that's something that I always find, whether it's through root camp or other cooking in schools that I do, is really when you start cooking in the classroom and letting students have their own time to read a recipe and work through it, students just light up, and it can even bring out transform the shyest student into the most confident, even throughout a 40-minute period. And it's really just a wonderful experience. I'm sure you probably all agree since you're here listening to me talk about this, but just to reiterate. And another 6th grade health and phys ed teacher from Brooklyn Green School said, I loved how seamless it was to embed into our current health program. Prep work was little to nothing because everything was provided. I love that students were provided with recipes that they can take home and try with their families. So now we're going to get into the necessary equipment. So this is talking more about logistically kind of your next steps if you are committed to teaching this year. So for cooking tools, we at Grow NYC will provide one set of basic kitchen tools per school. So that includes 2 sets of these kitchen knives, so it'll be 6 knives in total. 1 set of these just basic kitchen tools, so that's one of everything here. So 1 spatula, 1 slotted spoon, 1 whisk, one grater or peeler, I guess. And then we'll provide 2 sets of plastic cutting boards. So that'll be, again, 6 cutting boards total. And then we also provide a snack check of $100 stipend per class to purchase food for root camp. And this comes after you complete the program, and it's 1 per class. So if you are a teacher and you teach 3 classes root camp, you would receive $300. But if you're a teacher and you teach 1 class, you would receive $100. So just to reiterate, we will ship the cooking materials that I mentioned to your school. And it's 1 set of those classroom cooking materials per school. And then we have a $100 snack check at the end of the program, and it's 1 snack check per class. So if a bunch of different classes at your school were to be teaching root camp, you would receive 1 set of those classroom cooking materials, but then 1 check per class. And to receive the snack check, you need to complete a final evaluation, which will be sent to you once you complete the program and let us know. We will send you the final evaluation, but that'll come later on. So after this presentation, kind of your next steps will be that I will send you the curriculum. And if you look through the curriculum and you decide that you want to do it, you are going to teach it this year, you will go fill out this form, which is supply sign up 22.paperform.com. And if you know all of the participating teachers' names, you can fill out the form 1 per school. But if you don't, you can fill it out 1 per teacher, and I'll show you why in just a second. I'm showing you the form right now. So this is the supply sign-up form. And if you did root camp last year, you filled this out last year, but this is a new form, so you have to fill it out again. So we have supply sign-up 2022. We have your school name, school number, your teacher email and phone number, how many classes in your school are teaching root camp. And if you're not sure, if you think that you want to do it and maybe someone else wants to do it, just fill it out for yourself. Number of students, so if you have 1 class, number of students in your class or more than that. Which address should we send cooking supplies to? So this is your school address. And then we have where and to whom should we send snack checks to? And this is where, if you know multiple teachers and they'll all be doing it, you can write it out as name, address, but if you don't know, just write your own name and your own address. And then if your school already has the cooking supplies and you'd like to opt out of receiving cooking supplies, you check yes here. And that is the form. And this link will also be coming in the follow-up email from this presentation. So even if you filled out an interest form, which maybe you did to get to this presentation, you still have to fill out the supply form. Also, if you filled it out last year, you must fill it out again. After this presentation, you will receive an email with the recording of this presentation, a link to that form, and a copy of the curriculum, which even though we did go over a lot of the details today, I would still really recommend you to look through before you decide and before you sign up for supplies. And now I'm going to take questions. I will look at the questions that some people might have dropped in the chat. Oops. Okay, so I got a question from Rita. Do I need to sign up for all 10 lessons individually? No. So if you sign up for the curriculum, you'll receive the whole curriculum, and you'll receive the stipend, or you'll receive the cooking supplies, and then you teach the curriculum out. Will I receive the curriculum follow-up question? Yes. So everyone who is in this presentation right now will be receiving their curriculum in a follow-up email, and it will be a PDF. Karen Donahue, hi Karen, said, is the curriculum much different from last year? So no, the curriculum is the same as last year, actually. So if you taught it last year, you will know it really well, and you can basically just pick it up and continue to teach it. It is such a great curriculum. Thank you. So that was another thing about root camp that we found last year, is that teachers at different programs or different schools were able to tie it in a kind of greater way to what they were doing in the classroom. For example, I had one 6th grade teacher who was teaching the book The Omnivore's Dilemma, and they used that book by Michael Pollan, and they were able to connect the different root camp lessons to Omnivore's Dilemma, which I thought was really interesting. So currently we have this funding to promote root camp through the end of the school year again. So that is something that's important, I guess, is that if you don't necessarily have to teach it right away, but we can only provide those snack checks through the end of this school year, so June 2023. So you would have to finish it before then. Thank you. Who will provide the resources and tools? So Grow NYC provides the resources and tools. You will be receiving them from Grow NYC. And I'll always be here as the coordinator of this program to answer any questions or connect you with others along the way. And we do have, a community of people that have already taught root camp. So we have lots of people, direct sources to answer questions. So if we don't have any more questions for now, I'm leaving my email address up here. It is sleon@grownyc.org. And if anything comes up, you can send it to me. Thank you. Looking forward to signing up. Great. That's great to hear, Barbara. Thank you. And thanks everyone for joining this afternoon. And if you think of any other questions or comments, send them my way, but you should be receiving the recording, the curriculum, and all of those links in an email tomorrow.